assignment.
I never wanted to just be about me.
I paid a heavy cost. Where do we go from here? I know I have not reached the end.
When I say I'm here with Kev, I think that it really entails us managing this franchise together.
What's happening, friends? Welcome into First Take on this wonderful Monday morning. We are squatted up. I'm Christine Williamson, Courtney Cronin, Freddie Coleman, and PK Subban joining me today. How are we guys today? Happy
Ready
Monday.
to go.
Smiling faces.
That's right.
It's a great Monday. We'll get to some hockey very shortly. Congrats to the Avs. But we start with the association because, well, Kyrie Irving. He has until Wednesday to decide whether or not he will opt into the final year of his 4-year max contract. He signed with Brooklyn in 2019. That, of course, is when he and KD chose to join the Nets as free agents. If he does, he will be an unrestricted free agent in July 2023. If he opts out, he will be an unrestricted free agent next month, when he could either agree to a new deal with the Nets or seek one elsewhere. KD said the following on his podcast regarding Kyrie's decision. Basketball is obviously the most important thing, but I try not to let that get in the way of somebody else's personal decision. Like I said, whatever happens, the friendship will still be there. Freddie, I'm going to start with you on that one. All right? Mm-hmm. Should KD feel betrayed by Kyrie?
No, he shouldn't feel betrayed because here's why. Kevin Durant knew what he got himself into when it comes to Kyrie Irving. We can't say that, hey, Kevin, here's a new book, and you didn't know what the book said when it comes to Kyrie Irving. He knew exactly what he was going to sign up with and who he was going to sign up with, and that's why he let the Valhalla, that was the Golden State Warriors, because he wanted to have that more of a friendship with somebody that he had more in common with than he had the Golden State Warriors, although he won 2 championships. I don't know how much more in common you can have when you're part of that organization. So I'm not going to say that Kevin Durant should feel betrayed by Kyrie Irving because he had to have known the kind of personality and the kind of friendship that he wanted from Kyrie Irving. So if anybody starts saying, hey, poor Kevin Durant, no. They're grown men that made a grown man decision. Kevin Durant made a grown man decision. So no, feeling betrayed by Kyrie Irving when you knew exactly what kind of person and personality that you're going to get involved with to try to win a championship, betrayed, you feel betrayed if somebody says you can't go to the mall Sunday afternoon, they promise you money. That's when you feel betrayed as a kid. But as you're Kevin Durant feeling betrayed when you knew exactly who you were getting involved with, yeah, I'm not buying that he should feel betrayed by this whole thing.
No, he should absolutely feel betrayed. This is somebody who coaxed him to come to Brooklyn, Freddie, to win a championship. And last I checked, this is a team that got bounced from the first round of the playoffs this year in large part because of everything that transpired up until the postseason. Kyrie Irving deciding that he wanted to be a part-time player, not abiding by the vaccine mandate, all of that. And now all of a sudden, if you're not going to get your way and get the big max deal that you want, using Kevin Durant as leverage, mind you, I would be a little upset about that if I was KD. You're going to go call your ex in LeBron James here and put him on a list of 6 teams that, oh, if things don't work out with Brooklyn, I want to go and play with LeBron James again. I would feel spurned if I'm Kevin Durant. And I know that he said it's a basketball decision and that he understands that Kyrie has to do what he has to do for himself. But Kevin Durant's also smart enough to know that he's the linchpin in this whole thing, that in order for Kyrie to get what he wants, he needs KD in all of this because the Brooklyn Nets want to keep Kevin Durant happy. So I would feel some type of way if I'm Kevin Durant right now, given the way that this thing is playing out with Kyrie Irving and all that is going on behind the scenes and potentially what might happen if he does leave the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, I think that in Brooklyn, when it comes to Kyrie Irving, I don't think it's going to be too personal. I think that this is about basketball. Kyrie wants to be a max player because he has max player talent. You know, he wants to be paid the way he should be played. Now, you know, if I'm a player and, I'm not playing enough games, I understand that I may not get the contract that I'm going to get. He may feel differently about why he didn't play those games. And, but Brooklyn's got to put a winning team on the court. When you have Kevin Durant as a player, you can't waste time wondering about who's going to play and who's not going to play. If you're going to pay somebody max money, you got to make sure that they're on the court. And that's not a slight on Kyrie at all. That just means that we got to win here in Brooklyn. We have one of the best players in our generation. We got to win. So Brooklyn's got to put the best team together. As far as Kyrie goes, he's got to do what's best for him personally, right? Mm-hmm. So he's got to put himself in the best position for his career, his family, and to play basketball. And if that's not in Brooklyn, then he's got to move forward. And Kevin Durant understands that.
And here's the deal. I'm going to go at Courtney, what you said about coaxing somebody. How are you allowed somebody to coax you? They they can give advice, and you're a grown person where you can say to yourself, okay, I'm going to follow along with it. When you use the word coach, you make it seem as if you're trying to give Kyrie what he wants, because Kyrie wants to be an alpha male, but no one's ever going to trust that guy to be an alpha male. I'm not following that guy into the abyss of Kyrie dumb when it comes to him. So if you're Kevin Durant, if you allow Kyrie Irving, to use your word, not saying it's a bad word, but to use your word, coax him into doing that, then what does that say about Kevin Durant? That all of a sudden you're going to follow along with somebody along the lines of Kyrie Irving based on previous events with what went wrong in Boston and then the end in Cleveland. We would not be talking about Kyrie Irving being a world champion if Draymond Green didn't get kicked out for Game 5 of that series, or LeBron did not have that chase down block of Andre Iguodala in Game 7. So that's who Kevin Durant is going to be coaxed by when it comes to Kyrie Irving. I would find a different box to have somebody coax me from that standpoint, because too much of that, in my opinion, has gone on with Kevin Durant being coaxed by situations or by people to align his line of thinking or where his future should be in the NBA.
Well, the two of them had the same plan, the same vision to go win a championship together in Brooklyn. It was their first chance that they were going to have to do something together. They're building their own thing. So Kevin Durant signed on to that. I can't fault Kevin Durant for not knowing how a global pandemic was going to play out with his teammate and his decision to be a part-time player here. I can't fault Kevin Durant for Kyrie Irving in the part-time nature just of his mind. Does he want to be all in on basketball? Does he not want to be all in on basketball? He gave him a chance. And when he is at his best, Freddie, you know this. He's one of the best shooters in the NBA, best pure scorers,
There's
most
no
dominant
doubt.
players on the floor. So I'm Kevin Durant. I'm thinking that's the version I'm going to get. I trusted you to be this person.
You should have never trusted Kyrie Irving to begin with.
And you haven't shown up for me.
But he deserves better. Like, Kevin Durant deserves better than what he's gotten in Brooklyn. I think everybody can agree with that. When you look at his numbers and how he performed when Kyrie was out of the lineup, when James Harden wasn't playing, he deserves better than this. And I think it's just really unfair that people are critical of him and his legacy over the time. Like, listen, what he did in Golden State, he stepped up. He carried that team for that time that he was there.
No doubt.
They needed him in that time. So for people to be taking slights at his legacy and saying that he needs to go and lead a team, he gave Kyrie the opportunity going to Brooklyn. He gave James Harden the opportunity to win a championship, and he stepped up and he did his thing. Kevin Durant isn't the reason why there isn't a championship in Brooklyn. I don't think that's the guy to blame.
Right.
So, everyone's got to take a step back. I'm interested to see what Kevin Durant does next. I'm really interested about him, not anybody else. Does he decide to stay in Brooklyn and say, I'm going to put my trust in the team, whether we have Kyrie or not, that they're going to surround me with players to give me an opportunity to win a championship? I think he deserves better than what he's been given.
That's what I want to see.
So we all want to see that, but PK, to your point, Kevin Durant can't worry about being coached by other people. Kevin Durant's got to coach Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
And that's why when he went on that podcast, I thought that was the smartest thing he could have said by saying, you know what? I'm not getting in the way of anybody's money. I'm not getting involved this whole Brooklyn Nets over here and Kyrie over there. I'm not about to play mediator between this whole potential divorce involving Kyrie and the Brooklyn Nets. That was the smartest thing he could have said, PK, Christine, and Courtney, by saying, you know what? Y'all gonna do you, just like Wanda Sykes said, I'ma do me. That's what I'm going to do. He took the heavy D philosophy. I got my own thing, and he did the bundiddly D by putting that out there on that podcast.
He doesn't have to, though. He shouldn't have to. He's a superstar.
PK, you're right. He shouldn't have to. But this is the situation. Because you know this professional athlete, sometimes you have like two guys that are bickering, and somebody say, PK, you're the captain of this team. You're the leader of this team. You need to get involved and say, well, I know the principles. There's only so much I can do. These two have got to figure it out themselves. That's what Kevin Durant said, saying, you know what? I got to worry about me, but you guys are doing the same thing. Brooklyn, you're worrying about you. Kyrie, you're worrying about you. I'm going to do the same thing. It's the smart thing that he did not get in the middle of that.
He doesn't necessarily need to get in between the franchise and the player. Why not just pull the player aside? Have these sort of conversations to talk about how things went down, to be like, hey, why don't we have a realistic look in the mirror because of fault? I did miss 21 games in a stretch because of a knee injury, and we lost a lot of games, and we were the 1 seed, and then we went all the way to the play-in tournament because I didn't have you as my running mate there to back me up when I wasn't right. So I wouldn't fault Kevin Durant at all. If behind the scenes, like publicly, I got to credit him because it takes a better person than me not to throw somebody under the bus like that when I feel like I'm getting played publicly. But I just, I can't fault Kevin Durant for what he said, like you said about not messing with another man's money. That's fine. go get your mans. Tell it, like, put him in line, because who else is going to do it?
But it's easier to say when that guy's not Kyrie Irving.
Hold up.
Well, LeBron James is going to do it, Freddie, if he ends up going to LA. Because you know LeBron's not playing like that.
Yeah, but it's also business, too. You got to remember this. Outside of the players, as much as the superstars have a lot of power in basketball, you know, there's still a business that's being run. You know, and when you have one of your star players that's off the court for that long, regardless of what the reason is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't bode well for your fan base when people come to the arena and Kyrie's not on the court for whatever reason, right? So that stuff kind of supersedes Kevin Durant and what his role is for Brooklyn. He can't really get involved in that because that's the business. He doesn't own the Brooklyn Nets, right? He doesn't make those decisions as far as whether Kyrie decides to play or not. That's not on him. He has to show up and do his job, and he's done that consistently. So I think he's doing the right thing by taking a step back and saying, hey, listen, the organization needs to make the best decision for us as a team moving forward. I'm putting my trust in them that they're going to do that. If there's an impasse where I can now help out and say, hey, Kyrie wants to be here, let's figure out something to make it happen, great, I'll do that. But it doesn't seem that they're that close right now. It seems that they're a little further apart, and I think he's doing the right thing.
And real quick, maybe you're not comfortable doing that if you're Kevin Durant, because nothing against Kevin Durant. Some guys don't want to be leaders. How many times we heard from Kevin Durant that he just wants to play ball? And I get it, because that's his comfort space. That's where he wants to be. If he doesn't feel comfortable going past that line and say, yeah, Kyrie, you know, they really want to work it out. Hey, Brooklyn Nets, you know, Kyrie really wants to work it out. If he doesn't feel comfortable doing that, then he's not going to do it. And the best thing, if you don't feel comfortable doing something, you want to make things more uncomfortable by putting yourself in a situation where you don't want to be in and you're not comfortable doing that.
He doesn't need to play contract negotiator, but I don't think it would hurt anybody if he goes to Kyrie Irving and says, look, do you really think you're in the max deal? Like, why not take whatever they're offering you this year, ball out, earn your money with me, let's go win a championship, and then next year or the year after that, then you get your max deal. You know, you're only as good as the people in your corner who can, you know, give you the real, Freddie. And that's something that I feel like Kyrie Irving's missing out on right now.
He's always missed out on the real. That's the problem here.
I got to agree with what you're saying, but then there's also the other side of it as an athlete, where, man, you only get so many opportunities. Like, Kyrie Irving is that good.
Right.
Exactly.
He is that good.
Exactly.
He is a max player
There's
when
no
he's
doubt.
on the court.
Right, that's true.
So is he wrong for
be on the
demanding
court?
it?
No, I would never say someone's wrong for demanding money, PK and Courtney and Christine, but here's the deal if you're Kyrie Irving. If you've already sold the bill of goods to Kevin Durant and all of a sudden you realize that I don't want to be a part of this anymore, then if you can't bang on Kevin Durant for doing his own thing when Kyrie Irving has done this his entire career in the NBA.
I do think it's very interesting, too. I don't know if you guys heard Logan Murdoch over at The Ringer did say that KD actually feels like the Nets didn't handle the situation properly. So it's very interesting conversation, even though he didn't actually say it. He didn't put a quote out there, but there were reports. Okay, so if he does opt out, Kyrie Irving has a wish list down to 6 teams per Woj, with the Clippers having the best current odds to win the 2023 NBA Finals out of the bunch. The Knicks are the biggest long shot out of the group, with the rest sitting at 16-1. The addition of Kyrie would certainly increase their odds. I'm going to start with you on this one, Courtney. Kyrie throwing out a lot of teams for himself. What do you think the best fit for Kyrie is?
I think the best fit is for him to stay in Brooklyn. To take if it's a short-term deal, heavily loaded with incentives. I mean, pay the guy $50 million for one season. Don't give him the long-term security of this multi-year extension. He's worth, if you were to pay him $50 million for 1 year, he'd be worth every single penny of that. I just wouldn't trust it on more than a 1 year basis from right now. So this team, these two, had 247 games together. They've played in 58 together, their entire time together. Prove it. Prove that you are one of the best teams in the East. Your chances right now, the East is only going to get harder. So I think for Kyrie Irving to prove that he is that guy, a team that we haven't even seen how good they can be if there's going to be a trio with them and Ben Simmons as well. Like, remember, he is still on the roster.
Who? I'm sorry.
That's cute.
Did I say out loud? Bad Freddie. Bad Freddie.
But, I mean, Seth Curry's there. You've got shooters. You've got wing players. Like, this team can be really, really good. And also, he has $36.5 million, 5 million reasons, Christine, to want to stay with the Brooklyn Nets. He goes to the Los Angeles Lakers. He's taking a massive pay cut for somebody who lost out on $17 million last season for not playing in games when he was not eligible to play because he did not have the vaccine. I know athletes, like, I'm not going to talk about anybody else's money, but I personally, 36.5 million reasons is all I would need to opt into my deal with the Brooklyn Nets.
I'm saying Brooklyn.
Okay.
I'm saying Brooklyn. I'm a little bit biased. I got
Just
the
a tad.
opportunity to move into the city this year and spend some time. I've had an opportunity to get to know KD over the past couple of years. Ben Simmons. I've never met Kyrie, but I'm a huge fan.
Okay.
I just think they haven't spent enough time together on the court yet, and I'd like to see them have another opportunity to do that. I like the rivalry between the Knicks and Brooklyn. I love seeing that. I just think they need a little bit more time to see what's up. And I hope ownership figures out a way to make this work for Kyrie, and I hope Kyrie makes it work as well. I want to see him with KD. I think that's the right duo with the addition of Ben Simmons, who's going to be coming back playing hungry basketball. Obviously, a lot to prove. Shout out to Ben. I love Ben. I hope he stays in Brooklyn.
Okay.
That's for me.
Okay. Number one, welcome to my hometown of Brooklyn, BK all day. So welcome.
Let's go.
That BK all day. To me, and you guys are, in terms of being with Brooklyn, that's where he should stay. I'm with you on that one. But a better fit for him, if Kyrie's going to exercise the sign and trade, Miami Heat would be perfect. Because you got Jimmy Butler, you got that culture, you got an organization going to say, look, we know how seductive your talent is. You are a bucket getter. In the golden age of point guards, where you got all these meeps around, and Kyrie Irving, even though he's a little older, is still one of those meeps that can get things done. You pair him with an organization like that, and Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, they got pieces that they can trade, and you can match up. Where Kyrie gets his money, he gets that extension. He's in Miami, and now he's around an organization that says, hey, look, you get a chance, you win a championship here, you add to your legacy. You add to what people have thought about. You can discontinue that if you're Kyrie Irving. So, yeah, you're right, Courtney. 36.9 million reasons. Yeah, I want to stay somewhere, too. But if he's going to opt out, and I get the sense that his feelings may be hurt enough that he does not feel the loyalty from the Brooklyn Nets organization, that a sign and trade with the Miami Heat would be a better fit than staying in Brooklyn, try to smooth over hurt feelings.
The one thing that's interesting about all 6 of these teams, guys, is that for the sign and trade to happen, the Nets are going to have to facilitate that. So it's basically like asking the people you just spurned, please help me get somewhere else
exactly.
and also financially maneuver this, because none of those 6 teams have great salary cap situations right now. So isn't that kind of rich for Kyrie Irving to put a list of those 6 teams? Also, I laughed when I saw the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, come on.
I would love to see some weird world where James Harden ends back up on the Nets, but I like Rubik's Cubes. I like a challenge. So that's what that would end up being, but it's going to be really difficult for the Nets if he ends up not opting in to this contract on Wednesday at the deadline and trying to get him where he wants to go. I don't know that I'd put him on any of those 6 teams. I might send him somewhere else.
The reason I love when stuff like this happens is because people get to talking on social media. That's what everybody does. They go on Instagram, all that stuff. There is a guy that wants KD to pair up with him, and that would be one Dame Dalla. So Damian Lillard posted this Photoshop picture of himself and Kevin Durant on his Instagram story on Saturday. But then he deleted it. You know, Instagram stories are 24 hours. He deleted it before that 24 hours was up. It was gone by Saturday night.
We had someone tracking that. That's nice.
I think it's 15.
How long has this been up here? Hold on. So there were reports that KD was, quote, distancing himself from the franchise amidst all the things that were happening with Kyrie. So who knows how much distance. Would you understand if KD left the Nets? Courtney, I'll start with you.
Yes. I don't want him to, because I don't want to give anybody, any of the bus chaser people, anybody who says ring chasing, bus riding, whatever it was, I don't want to give those people any more fodder. But I can understand it from Kevin Durant's perspective of thinking, if I'm not in a good spot with this organization right now, which some things have been reported that he and the Nets aren't on great terms, how can I trust that they're going to bring me a running mate that I can be successful with going forward? I'm 34 years old this season. I had a knee injury that cost me 21 games this year. I had an Achilles injury that took me an entire season to come back from a few years ago. He's not getting any younger. So if you see a window, and if it is indeed Portland, because when you talk about someone who needs a fresh start, my goodness, Damian Lillard could certainly use that, and I can't see anywhere else for Dame to go and get that outside of whether they revamp everything in Portland and bring Kevin Durant out there. I don't want to see him go somewhere, PK, but I really could see, I couldn't fault him for doing it if he does.
I'd love to sit and talk to KD about where his head's at from here until the end of his career, because maybe it's not just about winning a championship for him. Maybe it's just about how he wins a championship. Maybe that's the target because he's won rings. He's got his rings. He's got his money. He's got his pedigree as a championship player and one of the best players of all time. What could be his reason for leaving and going somewhere else? I don't know. You have to ask him that. But I think that, he can go to any other team. He'll be a contending player on a contending team, win a championship possibly. But I think for him, man, he loves the game of basketball. That's the one thing I learned about Kevin Durant watching him play this year, not having the guys around him that he should have around him to win a championship, but watching him go out there and just ball and just play and wanting to dominate and be the difference maker. And you could see he still has that hunger. So to think about him going to another place to win a championship, yeah, that's possible, but it depends on where his head's at and what his goals are. Is my number one goal just to win a championship, or is it to be on a team where I'm the guy driving the bus like everybody says and I want to win like that? Or do I just want to play basketball and play with guys that want to win and be a part of something special? I don't know, but he's going to have that choice. That's the luxury of being Kevin Durant.
I'm going to go back to the word that Courtney used earlier called coax.
Oh, you really, huh?
I've said it a few times.
It's one syllable, 4 letters. It said so much from that standpoint because it is true that you have to coax your mind what you want to do. And the reason I think Kevin Durant should stay in Brooklyn, are you going to trust the friendship that you have with Kyrie Irving over an organization that has sold its soul for you? That's the key question as far as I'm concerned with Kevin Durant. You can be friends with people and still be on different teams and have a different idea how to go for a championship. If Kyrie Irving is going to opt out of his contract, do a sign and trade, he's basically told you, Kevin Durant, I'm choosing myself over you. And Kevin Durant's going to have to be good with that, whether he wants to or not. So the reason that he's with Brooklyn is because of the friendship. He wanted to have more of a friendlier type player with him than he felt he was not getting with the Golden State Warriors, despite winning 2 championships, like PK said with that basketball team.
He wanted to start his own thing too.
That's well, he had a chance to do that in Oklahoma City, and he decided to go to the Golden State Warriors. So apparently he thought having my own team was a lot better than being part of the Guardians of the Galaxy, went to the Golden State Warriors. So if you're going to do this now and you say, okay, I'm going to align myself with Kyrie Irving, but Kyrie Irving already has a different mindset, then why are you chasing him around to go to a different team? At that point, you have a chance to do that in Brooklyn. You have to have more trusting organization. Whatever you guys got to talk about in terms of what Brooklyn wants to do in the future with you as a centerpiece of it, then you have to have that conversation if Kyrie Irving decides to leave. And if that's going to be the case, you're right. They're not far away. They won't have a Kyrie Irving, but that's not to say they're going to be a worse basketball team. Collectively, they may be a better basketball team because that kind of distraction is no longer over this franchise. If you're Kevin Durant, you don't have to answer questions. When's Kyrie coming back? When's Kyrie coming back? You don't have to worry about that. This becomes your basketball team. You can align it any way you want because you have an organization that's going to do that, not just on the court, but also from a mental standpoint to make sure everything is copacetic when it comes to Kevin Durant.
Starting over is tough. And do you want to be starting over every couple years if you're Kevin Durant? I mean, this has kind of become a common theme for him. I don't want to see the Brooklyn Nets enter a rebuild because it feels like for the last decade they've been trying to get out of a rebuild, and it feels like we're almost on the cusp of that happening. So if Kyrie Irving leaves, Kevin Durant should stay, build a team with Ben Simmons, get other young core players in there over the next few years, build something that you can be proud of and say, hey, I didn't leave. I won a championship here in spite of Kyrie Irving, the guy that I came to play here with, in spite of him leaving and going on to do whatever he's going to do, because he's somebody else's problem at that point if he doesn't stay. And you brought this up, history has repeated itself at a lot of Kyrie Irving stops. Who's to say that this won't happen if he ends up going to the Los Angeles Lakers or to the Los Angeles Clippers, somewhere else?
It's going to happen.
That's no longer Kevin Durant's problem at that point. As to what PK said, he can just focus on the basketball if that's really what he wants to do.
KD don't care. KD don't care, man. Like, everybody's got to make their decision. He made his decision to leave Golden State, right? Like, listen to me. His decision, why did he go to Golden State in the first place? KD wants to be where he's wanted. Right?
Exactly.
Those guys wanted him there because they needed him there to win. People can't forget that. People think about, he went to Golden State and won a championship. No, they wanted him there. They needed him there.
Right. They all came after him.
Exactly. He wants to be where he's needed. I don't think there's going to be any type of emotional feeling with KD if Kyrie leaves or stays. He wants people that play with him to want to play with him, that believe that they can win with him. And that's what drives him. right?
Right.
That's what gives him that feeling that I want to play, I want to compete. These guys need me, and I need to show up for these guys. So, whether he stays in Brooklyn or decides to go somewhere else, I'm a KD fan. He's going to land on his feet, and he's going to have another opportunity to win a championship. It's just a matter of where he's going to do that. And if I'm talking to KD, I'm telling him, don't worry about people talking about bus driving and jumping on buses and bus stops and airplanes. I don't want to hear about it. Go and play basketball. You're one of the best players of all time. Go win where you want to win. Go play. Go have fun. But that's it.
But PK, in 21st century entertainment and sports, that's not what happens. The minute somebody claps at somebody, especially an old head like Charles Barkley, the young heads are going to give it back to him. And I don't blame Katie. I wouldn't want somebody calling me that either if I'm Kevin Durant.
And he reads and hears everything, right?
Which is fine, and that's his right to do that. But now, don't talk about it, be about it. If you're Kevin Durant, no matter what decision you're going to make.
Right, and if he moves around, we've seen him move, like you were saying, Courtney, we've seen him move so much. The whole point is we're trying to see if Kevin Durant can actually do it on his own. So it'd be great if he stayed in Brooklyn. All right, let's do that hockey. The Colorado Avalanche hearing before the NFL and NFLPA's jointly appointed disciplinary officer, Sue L. Robinson, is scheduled to begin on Tuesday, according to league sources. The NFL expects to push for a lengthy suspension for Watson, while the NFLPA defends the Browns quarterback who is accused of harassing, assaulting, or touching 26 women during massage appointments when he was with the Houston Texans. The NFL hopes for clarity on this case before training camp begins in late July, but knowing that the future for another quarterback on the Browns roster, Baker Mayfield, is still uncertain. Jake Trotter said on SportsCenter that Jacoby Brissett would be next up on the depth chart if, in fact, Deshaun Watson is suspended, which means that Mayfield is not an option. You'll remember that Mayfield requested a trade from the Browns in March as Watson was acquired. So NFL front office insider Mike Tannenbaum is now joining us. I'm going to start with you, Mike, on this one. Which team should Baker Mayfield should he return to the Browns? Excuse me. Should Baker Mayfield return to the Browns?
100%. And a couple months ago, I thought it was crazy, guys, to even consider that. But this is the ultimate marriage of convenience. Assuming that Deshaun Watson is going to be ineligible for a significant period of time, they have a great team. Baker Mayfield needs them because that will enhance his ability to get a big contract next year. There are no better options. And if I'm the Browns, I know it's a tough pill to swallow, but what gives us the best chance to win this year? It's a combination of Mayfield and Jacoby Brissett, who's really better as a backup. So I know it's crazy. At first, I thought there was no way this could happen. But the more you think about it, logic does the work of reason sometimes. And this is really a win-win for both Baker Mayfield and the Browns.
Yeah, if you have, I agree with Mike in that sense, because if you have Baker Mayfield back in Cleveland, you don't have to change the offense. You can have him do what he did last season, so you're not having Jacoby Brissett run the offense that you'd be creating for Deshaun Watson. But I'm also a believer in reality, and I feel like that bridge has been not only incinerated, but all of the little wood particles that would be left over, those were also blown up. There's no repairing this, Christine, from the way that the Cleveland Browns handled his exit on the way out in pursuit of Deshaun Watson, and also the way that Baker Mayfield handled this with the letter that came out almost as a divorce note, apologizing to the fans of Cleveland, realizing that his time was over there before it actually was. And, he's got the leverage right now, $18.8 million on that fifth-year option. If I'm Baker Mayfield, I'm sitting tight until another team comes along, and it's not going to be the Cleveland Browns.
I would love for Baker Mayfield to return to Cleveland just so that Twitter could melt from that standpoint. I would love for that to happen. But if I'm Baker Mayfield, if they make that call, I'm going to click. There's no way I'm even thinking about returning to the Cleveland Browns.
Toxic, you can't.
Well, not just toxic. I don't know if there's even a word for this, because I know if I'm Baker Mayfield, Courtney, and Mike and Christine, I'm saying, wait a minute, let me get this straight. You need me now because the guy that you want to pay $230+ million in contract money is having all this situation, and he could be suspended a year by the NFL, and now you need me because at $18.8 million you can't move on from my contract. Let me think. Hell no, I'm not even returning to the organization. I never gave up on you. That would be my answer on Baker Mayfield. With all that happened last year, I never gave up on you. I went out there and played injured. I played hurt, even when guys didn't want to be with me. And then this is how you do me at the end of the year. And yeah, I get it. In terms of quarterback, Deshaun Watson, in terms of talent, better quarterback than Baker Mayfield. But that's who you decide to align yourself with after I aligned myself with you and gave it up for you guys. They could call all day long, and there's no way if I'm Baker Mayfield, Mike and Courtney, that I'm returning to the Cleveland Browns. I don't care what they need or who they needed.
But Freddie, I'm looking at it totally differently. If I'm Baker Mayfield, for me, being selfish, the best place for me in 2022 to make the most money for the next 10 years is in Cleveland. So I'm not going back to help you. I'm going back to help me, because $18 million should really be pocket change and the rounding error to what should be a $35 to $40 million contract as a free agent in 2023. And the best way for me, Baker Mayfield, to effectuate that is to play great football behind a great offensive line, two great backs, Amari Cooper. There's no place, be it Seattle or Carolina, that I could come close to really showing people what I can do. So I understand your points and they're fair, but I think it's actually the inverse. If I'm Baker Mayfield, going back to Cleveland is in my own best interest.
I hear you. In terms of that, Mike, from the standpoint of money and your career, absolutely. But, Mike, we know Baker Mayfield really well.
Right.
He believes he can win anywhere. You give him 4 people, and he thinks he can go out there and take on the world, especially when, in my opinion, he may be the most motivated guy going into 2022 based on how the Cleveland Browns did him. So, in terms of that, you're exactly right. I'm just saying from the standpoint of Baker Mayfield, why would I want to go back to an organization that did me like that? It's in my best interest to look out for me, and I'm not going to have you do that for me or do that with me if you're Baker Mayfield.
Football's full of head games and full of ego. So, I mean, to be able to put all of that aside and say, cool, clean slate for everyone, Cleveland Browns and myself included, that's not realistic. That's not going to happen because, as we know, this Deshaun Watson stuff and whether he's suspended for an entire season or not, that's going to be hanging over the Browns franchise's entire year. Baker Mayfield's going to get asked 1,000 questions about Deshaun Watson and, oh, now you're back here, and how do you feel playing for a team that didn't want you the entire time? He's not going to handle that well. Realistically, would this be his best chance to set himself up like a second lease to go somewhere else?
Sure.
Yeah, because he knows the offense. He wouldn't have to start over. But Baker Mayfield's a competitor. Send him to Carolina, either via a release or if you force them into trading for him, and give him a chance to go prove that he can be that guy. The guy that he was when you drafted him, the guy that, won you a playoff game, all the things that you thought Baker Mayfield could do. Now, if you light a fire under him, you know how competitive he's going to be, how much more locked in this year, and he's not going to be dealing with a shoulder injury. So, I mean, I think you get a different quarterback at that point.
I would say Seattle. I mean, Carolina, definitely. I mean, you have Sam Darnold, who Baker Mayfield can throw the ball better backwards than that guy can throw it forward when it comes to Carolina and Sam Darnold. But Seattle has an easier situation, because all of a sudden Drew Lock, everybody knows he's not the answer. You go to Baker Mayfield and you become the guy after Russell Wilson and you win in that city, you can do yourself a hell of a lot of favors, because they don't know who. Right now, the Seattle starting quarterback for 2023 is not in their roster right now. You could be the starting quarterback in 2023 and 2022 if you're Seattle, if you get a chance to have Baker Mayfield. Go to your team with DK Metcalf, a top-flight wide receiver. You provide him with a running game a little bit. You're not asking to go out there and save the franchise. Just go out there and be Baker Mayfield that we saw at times before injuries and whatever happened in Cleveland kind of took that whole thing away.
Mike, I'm curious because go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, one fundamental point. I think I would take Carolina over Seattle, but I think there's something very fundamental here, guys, which is it's almost July 1st, and he has to go learn a system. So, again, I understand he has a chip on his shoulder, but going back to Cleveland, you know the system, you know the players. If you get any place now going into training camp, you're going to be massively behind.
Mike, I'm curious. So if Baker decided to stay in Cleveland and then the Deshaun Watson thing kind of figures itself out, what exactly would he do if Deshaun Watson comes back and is playing quarterback?
Well, first of all, I think it would look as a positive that he was a team guy. He went back to his organization, albeit under unique circumstances. And then I would play the long game, which is, hey, maybe I get traded at some point before the trading deadline. Some team may lose a quarterback. I'm young, I'm healthy, I'm productive. And I don't think there's any downside. And by the way, you are under contract, so you could be fined massively if you don't show up. So I don't think at the end of the day he really has many options. Obviously, a trade still could be in the cards, but beyond that, he's going to have to report for training camp.
The Cleveland Browns are the ones who I put more of the weight on to fix this situation, because you can effectively light the season on fire if you're going to start Jacoby Brissett in place of Deshaun Watson. So do everything you possibly can. Good luck to you if you're the Cleveland Browns to try to fix that thing. I just don't see it realistically happening, knowing who Baker Mayfield has been in his public persona and what
That's what I was going to say. I feel like Baker Mayfield has way too much of an ego to be like, and now I'm just going to go back to Cleveland Browns. Yeah, I don't think that's Coming up, Kyrie's time in Brooklyn. Kyrie has a $36.5 million player option for next season, with a Wednesday deadline looming on whether he will exercise it or decline it and become a free agent. Kyrie did list out some potential teams he would be interested in a sign and trade option if he and the Nets don't agree on terms for him to stay in Brooklyn. One of those teams on the list was the Lakers. So Draymond Green said the following on Kyrie and LeBron in an interview with Bloomberg. With LeBron James, if you give them someone like Kyrie, they'll have a chance because of the way Kyrie can score the basketball. LeBron will only put him in a position to do that. Kyrie has not proven to be a great leader. LeBron will put an umbrella over that. If you can do what you're good at, you have LeBron leading, they could contend, but they won't beat us. Just a little bit of shade there. You obviously have to get that shade in. Freddie, I'm going to start with you on this one. Should LeBron be interested in a reunion with Kyrie?
Nah, you can leave that whole Ben Affleck, J-Lo thing alone if you're LeBron James, to be honest with you, because, and I get it, Kyrie Irving, and I'm going to say this out loud, it may not be the popular commentary, Christine and Courtney, but to me, he's not a bad guy when it comes to Kyrie Irving. I don't think there's a bad guy there, but he is very unwilling to compromise if it doesn't fit what he believes should fit. And Draymond made the point in terms of that Kyrie has shown that he has not been a great leader. I don't think he knows how to go about that because he believes his way should be the best way. And that's not to say he's wrong, but you got to do a better job of communicating that. And he was completely out of bounds when he tried to do that at Boston. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum said, take a good look at us. Who do you think you are? And Marcus Smart was right there with it. Kyrie Irving understands what an alpha dog is supposed to look like because he played with it with the Cleveland Cavaliers. He just doesn't know how to do it. So now you're asking a guy who wants to be an alpha and have LeBron James kind of simmer him down. I don't think LeBron James wants to sign up for that. He's got enough dealing with going to L.A., having still all the Kobe Bryant fans saying you're not a real Laker. So he's got to still deal with that in Los Angeles. So now you're bringing a Kyrie Irving, who's one of his main idols, was Kobe Bryant, who wants to believe he can be Kobe Bryant. If you're LeBron James, there's certain seductions you can sign up for. This is something you need to stay away from, no matter how gifted a basketball player Kyrie Irving is.
So apparently we know that their friendship has been mended because they had that falling out after the two of them left Cleveland. So if there's anybody who could make this work, it's LeBron James for a number of different reasons. First, if I'm LeBron, I'm thinking, trading for Kyrie Irving gets me out of the mess that I created bringing Russell Westbrook here, because you know that the Lakers would probably trade Russ and a future first-round pick, maybe two, back to Brooklyn in exchange for Kyrie Irving. That gets him out of your hair. He's their problem, and you can start over fresh here. If you've got Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis, a healthy Anthony Davis, I feel like that's a team with a lot of work elsewhere, which kind of remains a mystery with the rest of their bench and their depth, that could contend for a title. But the only person who can make this work is LeBron James, because LeBron, at this point of his career, we don't know how many more years he's going to play. He has the power as the GOAT of this era to tell Kyrie Irving what's up. Like, I know we talked about this first hour and how I feel like Kevin Durant has every right to tell his teammate, hey, you kind of put me in a bind last year, like not necessarily like writing the journey for him, but showing him to the light. LeBron's going to pull you into the light and show you exactly what needs to be done because that's his team. You're not going there as Kyrie Irving and becoming like Kyrie Irving, king of the Los Angeles Lakers. That's LeBron James's team, and you're going to do things LeBron's way when you're out there. So if you're Kyrie Irving, you're setting yourself up for that, knowing that, going there. Because remember, there was that podcast that Kyrie Irving was on at the time that he and KD had linked up. And he said, you know, I'm so glad that I get to be with someone who I know is not going to always automatically take the last shot in a basketball game. That was a shot at LeBron James. If those two have inevitably moved past that, you still know that LeBron's taking that last shot at the end of the game. If you are Kyrie Irving, you got to be okay with that going to the Lakers. Also, I mean, he's got to take a big pay cut to go to the Lakers. Not a fan of that one if I'm him.
Yeah, $6.4 million mid-level exemption. Yeah, he may not want to give a $30 million and leave that on the table. Here's where I'll disagree with you a little bit, Courtney, in terms of LeBron can do that with Kyrie and not make him stand down. That's not the proper term. I know you weren't trying to say that. I think the only person that can make Kyrie go along is Kyrie Irving. Because I firmly believe Kyrie Irving's at a point, and he's always been this way, where some people are different. He's different. And at times that can work. But at other times, when it comes to a team sport, that becomes a major issue. And Kyrie Irving is not getting any younger. And the league is getting younger and faster every year, where you look at Memphis, what they're doing. Golden State is fortifying their team in the future, that when Steph and Clay get to that point, they got Jordan Poole and other cast of characters ready to take their place. Can't forget about the Denver Nuggets. They're getting Jamal Murray back, and Nikola Jokic a back-to-back MVP. So the league continues to get younger and faster. If Kyrie Irving can't realize that, you know what, it can't just be about me. It can't just be about, okay, what's in it for me. If he has to expect LeBron James to do that, that's a bad path if I'm LeBron and the Lakers. Kyrie Irving has to do that. Kyrie Irving has to say, okay, I'm going to benefit if we all benefit. It's the old Magic Johnson scenario that I'm not worried about what was in it for me. When we win, we all win. Because if they win in Los Angeles, it's not just going to be LeBron. It's going to be LeBron and AD and Kyrie Irving. Everybody goes along with it. It can't just be about, I got to be on that same line because everybody's going to benefit. So it can't be about LeBron saying to Kyrie, come on, get along to get along. Kyrie Irving, in my opinion, has to do that more than LeBron James or anybody else.
Well, he also has to realize he hasn't played his best basketball since he was with LeBron in Cleveland.
Yeah.
His best, most consistent, the elite of the elite, Kyrie Irving, has been gone for a while. He hasn't been able to get back to that version of himself, for 5-6 years now. So he's got to realize, hey, I might have a chance running alongside LeBron James in ways that it wouldn't have worked with Kevin Durant if I'm going to the Lakers to reinvent myself at this portion of my career. You're right. He's not getting any younger, and there's a finite amount of time that he's going to be able to score at the level that he does. Go do it alongside LeBron James and play, with LeBron playing a number of different positions on any given night and creating for you. You create for him. You can be that option. You can be on effectively this new super team. I mean, that's what he did in linking up with Kevin Durant in Brooklyn. For him to get back to the version he was when he's taking that shot over Steph Curry in the 2016 NBA Finals. I miss that Kyrie Irving.
So does
Where's
Kyrie.
that Kyrie?
So does Kyrie.
I miss the old Kyrie.
Yeah, well,
I want that version to come back.
Yeah, so all of us do, because what does Stephen A. Smith like to say? He's box office big time when it comes to Kyrie Irving. The question is, sometimes you get the understudy. Anytime you go to see Kyrie Irving play, it's like a bad episode of Seinfeld. We came to see Bette Midler. There's no Bette Midler here. We came to see Kyrie Irving. There's no Kyrie Irving here. You can't afford to do that if you're Kyrie Irving. And we made the point earlier, and Courtney, you made the point, and Christine as well, about no one could have anticipated COVID-19, the bubble, social justice, a lot of those things. Kyrie Irving has played less than 53% of the games in Brooklyn ever since he got to that franchise. So many different factors have been able to take him off the basketball court. But at a certain point, when do you say to yourself, okay, I got to stop making it about me? I got to stop being the problem that anytime something goes wrong, it's always placed at my feet, whether it's my fault or whether I had anything to do with it or not. When does Kyrie Irving realize, as intelligent that I believe that he is, as sharp as I believe that he is always going to continue to be, being very worldly, when does he realize there is a bubble outside of your world that you have to be a part of to make things work, not just from an individual standpoint, but from a collective standpoint? And you can't think that LeBron James has to be that guy. If Kevin Durant can't do it or doesn't want to do it in Brooklyn, why are you going to go back to the first marriage and think that that's going to work around for Kyrie Irving in a different location?
Well, apparently they're BFFs again. They've solved all their problems and their marital issues, and they can create
They had a good counselor, a good mediator. They didn't have to separate the kids and the dog or nothing like that.
I just feel like LeBron's not going to put up with it in the ways that kind of feels like Kevin Durant's given him a pass. And, at every step of the way, when he's getting questions about Kyrie, he's defending him publicly. And I feel like LeBron, on the other hand, this is somebody who feels pressure to get back to the postseason. The Lakers and the Nets were the preseason favorites to win, to go to the NBA Finals this past season. Lakers didn't even get to the playoffs. The other team got bounced embarrassingly in 4 games by the Boston Celtics. So I feel like LeBron's probably looking at this, maybe swallowing a little bit of his pride, but he doesn't really have to. He can kind of muscle up here and say, all right, Kyrie, bygones are bygones. We can put the past behind us. But if you're coming here, you're walking into something that's already built, albeit There's a lot of things that need to change, I think, with that Lakers roster. LeBron's still in charge out there. The only way, I'm sure the Lakers probably saw this last week when he puts out his list of 6 teams and are thinking to themselves, oh no, GM LeBron again. I don't want to see this again. Because of what happened with Westbrook last year and how miserably that experiment panned out. So unless they're willing to give, him effectively a second chance here, I'm not so sure that they're going to want to take on what could be that circus as everybody else has seen it with Kyrie Irving. I mean, everybody in the NBA knows what's going down not too far from here in New York. So if there's anybody who can make it work, it's LeBron. We'll see if that happens, though, because I'm just not so sure the Lakers want to buy into that.
Something just occurred to me, what you just said. And we always talk about life lessons. And if you forget the past, you're doomed to repeat it. To paraphrase that line, if I'm LeBron James, I'm not going back to the past. I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to wish Kyrie Irving well and say, man, maybe in another lifetime, maybe the world ends and we have a new NBA, we might think about doing that. But sometimes it's best to let the past stay there. Sometimes it's best to say, yeah, that was what we had. Yeah, we fixed things in terms of friendship, BFF, acquaintance, associate, whatever that is. But sometimes it's good to be, Christine, you're right. Sometimes you can be frenemies, but that doesn't mean you can be frenemies together.
I want you to eat, just not at my table.
Absolutely.
Right?
Hey, you like that restaurant? I like this one. You have yours. Sometimes it's good to say, you know what, Kyrie? I'm not going to revisit that and think that we can make this work a second time because we're more mature, we're older, we clearly understand. If I'm LeBron James, that's not a road I want to go down to think that maybe this time around, Kyrie has learned his lesson, because there's no guarantees of that.
Well, if it's not Kyrie, we obviously know that LeBron does need help, though. Right. That free agency this year becomes ultra important for LeBron at this phase of his career in getting some more help around him and some scoring.
Well, good luck with that, the salary cap. Good luck with that.
Yeah, I mean, they're a team that is in a really tough situation.
Yeah, and I feel like LeBron does not want the drama of bringing Kyrie to LA. There's just too much on the line when it comes to that because it's not only his play on the court, it's obviously what's going on off the court. And who knows, it's just up in the air. Coming up, from one reunion to another, Aaron Judge's magical season continued on Sunday in the form of a 3-run walk-off home run in the 10th as the Yankees beat the Astros 6-3. It was his 28th of the season. Freddie, is Judge going to hit 60 home runs this season?
He'll get to 58. I don't think he'll get to 60, although talk about betting on yourself. If they thought they're going to pay him a lot of money before this season, man, they're going to have to open up. He's going to have so much money, he's going to write a check and every bank in this country is going to bounce. That's how much money he's going to make. But I think he's going to get 58 home runs. I think he just falls short. They're going to pitch around him a little bit because he's been that white hot. I think he gets to 58. He'll come close but not get to 60.
All right, we'll see what happens. Now we head over to the National Football League. Rob Gronkowski announced his retirement last week and immediately got to work post-retirement. Gronk posted this video on TikTok saying it's his first day of retirement. That is not a gritty. He's trying, but he's not succeeding.
That looks like my gritty.
It's a big fail. I'm not going to lie. When I saw this, I was like, please tell me he's not trying to gritty. And he is. The kids are definitely outdoing him. We welcome Mike Tannenbaum back to have this conversation with us. And Mike, I'm going to start with you. Do you think that Gronk will remain retired?
No chance. When Tom Brady says come, he'll say what time, how high you need me to jump. And look, I don't think Tampa Bay ever thought he was going to play 17 games anyway. So it's really more about quality, not quantity at this point. You know, consequential games coming down the stretch, third down, red zone, maybe 20 plays a game. Veterans don't want to go to training camp anyway. So he's in sunny, tax-free Florida with myself, and he's enjoying the summer right now. But there's a 100% chance he'll be a Buccaneer before the end of the season.
See, Mike and I usually have known each other for years. We usually agree on things. We're 2 for 2 today in disagreement. Mike, what have you done to our relationship when you've done this to me today? I hear you, bud, but I don't think he's coming back. I think this time is it for Rob Gronkowski, and it doesn't have anything to do with, being uninjured, being injured, doing the gritty, although Christine said that was the ugliest gritty she's ever seen when it comes to Rob Gronkowski. I just think at a certain point, Rob Gronkowski has always talked about that he did not want to have football walk away from him. He wanted to walk away from football. He has a chance to do that right now. And yeah, Tom Brady can be very, very persuasive. But I also believe this, Mike, Courtney, and Christine. I wonder how much Rob Gronkowski has paid attention to what we heard from Tom Brady since he decided to come back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because he sounds like a guy thinking, man, maybe those PTA meetings weren't that bad after all, because he's talking about getting his mind right, getting his body right again. It's tough to do that at his age. And if Tom Brady's talking about that right now, Rob Gronkowski, in my opinion, is probably saying, you know what? I'm young enough where I don't have to worry about making those kind of decisions. I don't have those kind of family commitments. I think even if Tom Brady calls, or in this case, when he calls, when he needs him, Rob Gronkowski's going to say, Tom, it's been real, but you need to do your own thing. I'm going to stay retired and try to improve my gritty dance moves with kids or kids not being involved.
Well, I mean, his own agent, Drew Rosenhaus, told ESPN's Adam Schefter that he would absolutely anticipate that he will come back and play, whether it's this season or next season. And the only person who's going to convince him to come out of retirement is the same person who did it the first time in Tom Brady. Now, if I'm Gronk right now, I'm trying to get healthy. I missed 5 games last season. He had a punctured lung, ribs were broken at one point, muscle spasms in his back. You're 33 years old. It's not really ideal to be dealing with all of those things, but you're young enough where if you take the next 4 to 5 months, you don't need to be at training camp. You already have an automatic connection with Tom Brady. Take the time to let your body heal, to do all of the things in recovery and give yourself the full amount of time to do those things, and then come back midway through the season when Tom Brady calls you, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers might be dealing with other injuries elsewhere. They might need another pass catching threat. Tom Brady may just miss him being out there, and if you're Rob Gronkowski, maybe you see Tom Brady got bored after 40 days of retirement. You know, Gronk might get bored with trying to out-gritty those kids or whatever else he's going to do in his spare time with more USAA commercials. I mean, that can only keep you fulfilled for so long. So if he still has football left in him, he's the greatest tight end, in my opinion, ever.
Okay.
Continue to build on that and go at it one more time, considering how good. You're not coming back to a bad roster. Like, if you do come back, if you're Rob Gronkowski, you're coming back to a roster that is loaded and reloaded at the wide receiver position. And also, Cameron Brate had an excellent season last year and is an up-and-comer at tight end. Can you imagine those 2 tight end sets that they can run down there?
Nah, he ain't coming back. I don't
Freddie's
care.
against it.
Yeah, I'm not against it. I mean, Mike, you can elaborate on this from a personnel standpoint because it's easy to plug and play him back in, just like the last time when this happened. I look at a guy like Rob Gronkowski, and not saying that he has fun outside of football. He's beyond having fun outside of football. That's what he does. I just think Rob Gronkowski at a point in his life, you think, you know what? I want to be able to walk away from this game. I wonder how much that punctured lung that he suffered last year may have scared him to say, man, I've seen a lot of guys that all of a sudden after football, those injuries and trying to play beyond your due date may accumulate. Even if Tom Brady calls, he only plays like 6 or 7 games, he may say, is it really worth it to what I want to be post-football? And I think he may decide that, I love you, Tom, but not love you that much to come back and try this one more time.
Mike?
You know, Freddie, here's what's interesting about that, which is I have scar tissue of 10 years trying to defend Gronk, be it at the Jets or the Dolphins. He was one of these players, guys, where you knew what was going to happen. You would double team him on 3rd down. You would double team him in the red zone, and you still couldn't stop him. Right. And I understand what you're saying about him feeling his football mortality. But when you go back to last year and someone like OBJ, who gave the Rams a shot in the arm to help them get over the top. I mean, before he got hurt, OBJ was the best player in the field in the Super Bowl. Like, he was still a difference maker. And I see a very similar situation going on this year with Tampa. Courtney, you alluded to it. They have Cam Brate. They actually drafted 2 more tight ends that they like. There's no doubt they have planned for the future without Gronk. But because things are going to be so close between them and the Rams to get there, I could see him coming in Halloween, Thanksgiving, giving them a shot in the arm. Again, doesn't have to be a full-time role, but when the whole stadium knows the ball is going to him and they still can't stop it, that may be the difference between them being the champions and not.
This is a good example of a part-time player working out to help your team, unlike in other leagues.
Wow, shot at Kyrie, really? Wow.
It would work out. It would work out.
Man.
Oh, we love that. I love the shade. I do want to ask you this, though. Without Gronk, where do the Bucs rank in the NFC? Mike?
Well, you know, for me, they're sort of like 1A behind the Rams. They're right there. You know, you look at some of these other teams, they may have taken a step back. Green Bay, most notably, losing Devontae Adams. Dallas lost a number of good players, most notably, in my opinion, Randy Gregory. So I think Tampa's right there. I actually think Tampa Bay got better at the head coaching position. I work with Todd Bowles. He's not a good coach. He's a great coach. I think a big X factor in them being better this year is not only Tom Brady, but their improvement at the head coaching position. And I think they're right there with the Rams. And again, going back to last year, the Rams did a great job of adding players like and OBJ down the stretch, and that's why I think Gronk could be consequential this year.
You think Todd Bowles going to be better for Tampa Bay this year compared to Bruce Arians, who led them to a championship, Mike?
I think he could be the next version of Bill Belichick. I worked for Coach Belichick in Cleveland. Things didn't work out there. He took a couple of years off. Patriots, Jets, goes up to New England, Freddie. The rest is history. You look at Todd Bowles' resume. What he did at the Jets was probably a little bit underrated. He spent a couple of years not as a head coach. He's now inheriting a great team. I think he's a better head coach than Bruce Arians, and I think his team will play that way this year.
Okay, well, I'm a Todd Bowles fan. I thought the Jets railroaded him out of New York. Not putting that on you, Mike, because you weren't there when that was going on. I thought the organization did that, the Todd Bowles from that standpoint. It's going to be very interesting how that may be the one adjustment. We all talk about going from one coach to another. To your point, I'm not going to say that Todd Bowles is going to be better than Bruce Arians, but at least the transition won't be as deep. For example, trying to replace a Rob Gronkowski, if they had to replace a Tom Brady, if he decided not to come back as quarterback for Tampa Bay, because Todd Bowles knows the players know him, and he gets a chance to show people that, once again, the New York Jets made a mistake when let somebody go somewhere else and be better off than being with that organization. But it's going to be interesting how he's going to be able to make that work, getting a second go-around, replacing a guy that led Tampa Bay to a second world championship in the history of that franchise. I can't wait to see how that's going to work out.
That's true. Anybody think that if Gronk doesn't retire, he has a future in dancing?
You know, I didn't get the gritty the first time that I had it. So
It's actually not that hard. You just shuffle your feet.
not all of us have rhythm, but I mean, I think this isn't an awful attempt. Like
You said it is not?
It is not an awful attempt. Mine looked just as bad as that one did. I mean, his with like the shifting of weight. I mean, gotta have a low center of gravity to do the gritty, as Justin Jefferson and the Minnesota Vikings taught me.
I will take Gronk playing for the Bucks over posting more videos like this.
Okay.
What if he does this after he scores a touchdown?
That'd be even worse. Actually, never mind. Just do whatever you gotta do. Gronk stamp TikTok. Maybe that's what it is.
Hi, Gronk.
Still
Courtney will be right with you after the show's over. Gronk wants a word with you after the show's over.
Of course. My bad. Still to come, the partnership in Brooklyn hasn't been. The last team to get into the NCAA baseball tournament was the last team standing in Omaha. Ole Miss won 4-2 on Sunday to sweep Oklahoma and capture their first national baseball title. The Rebels became the 8th national champion out of the SEC since 2009. Courtney, your reaction?
Those who know me know that I have a strong tie to the state of Mississippi. I spent 3 years down there covering a multitude of things, including Ole Miss in the 2014 College World Series when they made it to the semifinals and lost to Virginia. This story is so inspiring. From number one in the country to barely making it into the tournament. There were calls for their manager to get fired midway through the season. They stuck together. They ignored the noise, and now they're national champions. So this might irritate some of the Mississippi State people who still follow me from the great state of Mississippi. But hotty toddy to the Rebels.
Yeah.
What a beautiful story.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Ole Miss couldn't let Mississippi State have anything, huh? Mississippi State won their first national championship last year. And Ole Miss, like I said, hotty toddy, good God somebody. That's what they're able to do. And like my wife Denise said, last team in, last team standing.
Got to share the love. They got to share the love. That's exciting. This whole thing with the team that we're about to talk about, not so exciting. After a disappointing sweep at the hands of the Celtics in the first round of the playoffs, Kyrie's future in Brooklyn is uncertain. How much will KD be involved in Kyrie's decision? So KD said the following on his podcast: "There is no involvement at all. I can be involved with this man's livelihood. This is much bigger than me. Being a free agent is one of the most important times in your career. That can't be swayed by anyone else. Nothing can happen right now. I don't think he can make a decision on opting out until the 29th, I think. So I'll just let things play out and see what happens." Freddie, I'm going to start with you on this. What role should KD play in Kyrie's decision-making?
It can't just be 0. But it can't be 100. Here's why I'm struggling with Kevin Durant and people saying that you should have a say in what somebody else is going to do. Because how many times did people crush other people and say, hey, Kevin Durant, why are you following along with other people? Why'd you follow Golden State? Why'd you follow Kyrie Irving? And now the same people are saying, hey, Kevin Durant, man, you got to be with Kyrie Irving, boss. You guys are tied together. Kevin Durant's like, whoa, wait a minute. it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, in my opinion, when it comes to Kevin Durant. If he gets involved and Kyrie Irving leaves, they're going to say, oh, you're not a good leader, you're not a good friend, whatever that is. If he doesn't say anything and Kyrie Irving decides to stay, well, who's the alpha male with this basketball team? If I'm Kevin Durant, he said the right thing, he should do the right thing, and that is stay completely out of it. This is beyond the scope of any kind of involvement, Christine and Courtney, that Kevin Durant has to have. Because Kyrie Irving is going to make this decision based on what? Not his friendship with Kevin Durant, but what's best for Kyrie Irving. And Kevin Durant clearly understands that because he did what was best for him. When he left Oklahoma City to go to Golden State, then he left Golden State to go to the Brooklyn Nets and sided with Kyrie Irving. So he's not going to want people telling him what to do. That's why he's exercising the same option here. So I think he's done the right thing, said the right thing, stay completely out of it, let Brooklyn and Kyrie work itself out, and whatever it lands, then that's what he's going to wind up doing.
I understand not like negotiating or brokering between the franchise and the player, but this is a team sport and actions are not contained in a vacuum. Whatever Kyrie Irving does is going to affect Kevin Durant this season and beyond that potentially. So also, Kevin Durant knows that Brooklyn wants to keep him happy. And that's a big a sticking point for Kyrie Irving in these negotiations. Give me the max deal because, if I leave, Kevin Durant's probably not too far behind me and he's going to go somewhere else that's not Brooklyn. So if I'm Kevin Durant and I know this, I'm probably not using me as leverage would bother me as a player because Kevin Durant has earned what he's earned on his own. Some people are going to say different, but he's earned what he's earned on his own. And I feel like Kyrie Irving at this point, using KD as a ploy here to get what he wants, even if you are close friends, I'm not sure how that would sit with me. I think Kevin Durant has a right. I'm not saying that he's going to do it. I think he has a right to have that sort of come to Jesus talk with Kyrie Irving and say, look, this is what happened last year. I really want to play with you. We are better together than we are apart. So, the deal that you might be getting from Brooklyn might not be the max. It might not be 4 years, 198, what I got last offseason. But you can eventually get there. They're going to give you a short-term deal that's probably loaded with incentives, so you'll make some money. And even if you didn't, 36.5 versus missing $17 million last season, Christine and Freddie, for not playing in those games, that's a sizable chunk of money. I feel like if you're KD, you say, hey, let's lock in. Let's go win a championship this year. Let's contend in the East at the bare minimum, and you can set yourself up because I'm going to help you do that.
Well, that's all well and good. That would work on somebody not named Kyrie Irving. And here's why. Because we've seen this, Courtney, before with Kyrie Irving, that you could say the sky is blue. If he doesn't believe it, he's not following along. You can give him as many receipts as possible, and he's going to say, nope, don't believe it. Kevin Durant can go to him and say exactly what you said. Hey, Kyrie, together, we're terrific. Separate, we're not going to be the same. No matter where you go, you're not going to have it as good as you have it right now with me because this is what we signed up for together. And Kyrie and me looking and said, man, Brooklyn didn't give me the respect I was looking for. They should have given me the max extension. I shouldn't have gone and opted in or opted out to get what I want. You don't know how that's going to set him on whatever road that Kyrie Irving is going to be on. And I'm a big believer. You can say whatever you want, but your actions will dictate exactly what that's all about. And if you're Kevin Durant, you have a history by saying, man, when things went haywire in Cleveland, he went his own way. When things went haywire in Boston, he went his own way. I go back to, remember he had the whole Boston fans, and he said, I want to be here as long as you have me. Like, Kyrie, he's our man. Then he tried to power play the Boston Celtics, and they said, dude, you're not going to talk to us that way, and he couldn't wait to get out of Boston. If I'm Kevin Durant, you can't place your future with uncertainty that you don't know what's going to happen involving Kyrie Irving.
You can't, but I feel like if there's anybody that Kyrie Irving would listen to, it's Kevin Durant.
I disagree.
Remember what he said at the end of that Game 4 against Boston. When he's, pontificating about how, me, KD, Sean Marks, Joe Tsai, we're going to put our heads together this offseason, thinking about the future. He threw KD's name in that mix there. He clearly respects his opinion. He helped get him to the Brooklyn Nets, because those two had the same mission at the time when they came over from their respective organizations to play and win a championship here. I feel like if there's anybody who can get through to Kyrie Irving, it's Kevin Durant. And Kyrie foreshadowed that at the end of his postseason. Now, I'm not saying KD has to come up with the numbers, figures, and cents to help this deal get through, but he can talk some sense into him, guide him to water, because at this point, it feels like Kyrie Irving is a lost person amongst all of this, because think about it. This is going to be the fodder for the next 48 hours until he opts in or opts out. And you know that's going to be something that we find out 90 seconds before it happens.
Of course.
Because he's going to run this thing up until the very deadline. Get some guidance, get some structure, and get it from somebody who's been through this process before and has done it. You know, I know some people are going to disagree with me, done it in the right way where he's not, spurning teams left and right. Like your point about Boston, yeah, it's hard to trust Kyrie Irving after those comments because he thought he was going to be there a long time. He said he wanted to be there a long time. And Boston fans, the reason that it's so contentious between those two, they got left at the altar because they thought he was going to be there. So I understand the logic of Kevin Durant wanting to be like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to let him handle this himself. But good friends are there for you when you need them.
No matter what.
Great friends are the ones who can help you in a situation that you might not be able to see clearly.
Real quick, remember when Kyrie Irving said that, that's when he thought everybody's going to be on the same page. Then Sean Marks, the general manager,
he got humble. He got humble real quick.
We want guys all in. And all of a sudden things changed from Kyrie Irving where, this organization's not supporting me. This organization is supporting you because they know they're a better organization when you are out there. Now, whatever's going to happen in the future, if Kyrie can let bygones be bygones and move forward, we'll see. But we've seen time and time again, if he feels anybody is not on the same page or in the same boat with him, he's going to look for a different ship that goes somewhere else.
And I think to your point, too, KD doesn't really seem to have the type of personality to be like a leader in that way.
That's not him.
So I don't know if he can necessarily pull Kyrie along, especially, Freddie, to your point, if Kyrie is just going to bounce regardless.
I'm all about control what you can control, but when your actions are not contained in a vacuum and they affect me as a player, when I'm going to be 34 years old this season and realizing I've got a finite window to continue contending for a championship, I feel like you have a right to speak up and say something.
That's very true. We'll see what happens on Wednesday when Kyrie has a chance to opt in or opt out. Still to come, Jimmy G took the Niners deep into 49ers quarterback Jimmy G's timetable for throwing remains on schedule after offseason shoulder surgery. The expectation has been that Garoppolo, who had the procedure on his right shoulder in March, will throw over the next few weeks after he's been cleared, and that plan remains in place. Mike Tannenbaum is back with us. And Freddie, I'm going to start with you here on this one.
All right.
Who should start for the 49ers, Jimmy G or Trey Lance?
Well, it should be Trey Lance because you told everybody that you don't want Jimmy G as your quarterback anymore. So this is the guy you drafted to take over because you didn't believe in a guy that's won more than 70% of his starts in the NFL, has taken your team to the NFC Championship game twice, and was a bad throw away from making yourself a Super Bowl champion. That wasn't good enough for the San Francisco 49ers when you signed this guy to that 5-year, 1-year, $37+ million contract when he only played 5 games, went 5-0. You're ready to cut ties with him. So you can't just go backwards, in my opinion, to the San Francisco 49ers. You had told everybody Trey Lance is our guy. That's why we drafted him that early in the first round in 2021. You're going to accelerate this process? Okay, accelerate the process. If you can't move on from Jimmy G and trade that contract, have him as a backup. If Trey Lance is not working out early after 5 or 6 games and he's not ready to be a primetime player, then you slip Jimmy G back in there and you go on with business as usual. But you told everybody, Jimmy G's not our guy anymore. We're going with Trey Lance. You can't go backwards, in my opinion, if you're the San Francisco 49ers.
A lot of people have wondered why they held on to him for this long. And, maybe it's some, delusion of draft capital that they can get. But, this week is an important week because if we soon find out that Deshaun Watson is going to be suspended for an entire year, the Cleveland Browns might be calling the San Francisco 49ers and giving them what they wanted, something that Carolina didn't end up doing during and before the draft for Jimmy G's services. Now, I believe that you do start Jimmy G at quarterback. And the reason behind that is Trey Lance is still growing in an NFL offense. Remember, before he was drafted, he played 1 game. We have not seen him play a full season in the NFL, and they've gone through this easing in process while Jimmy Garoppolo has continued to perform and to put up numbers for you. Why get off a winning horse at this point? You have nothing to lose right now by continuing to keep Jimmy Garoppolo as your starting quarterback. And let's say, everything works out a different way for the Cleveland Browns. You still have that leverage if he's on your roster by the trade deadline to potentially send him somewhere else. Now, if you're the San Francisco 49ers, you feel like you will be contending in the NFC this year. So you're not sending him to another title contender in your conference, but the leverage would still be there. You could get a lot for Jimmy Garoppolo if somebody else's quarterback situation doesn't work out.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Courtney. And my man, Freddie, you're 0 for 3 today because
What's going on?
you have a great team in San Francisco. Why in the world would you not start Jimmy G? You have a championship team. They've done a great job. I love Trey Lance. I thought he was the best quarterback coming out 2 years ago. But he hasn't played a lot of football. He got dinged up a year ago. Bring him along slowly. Guys, this is a great axiom. Win for today and develop for tomorrow. Go win with George Kittle. Go win with Deebo Samuel. You have a really good offensive line, and you have a quarterback that all he's done is take your team to the Super Bowl and take your team to a championship game. And if Jarsky Tart handles that punt that Matt Stafford throws, they're probably back in another Super Bowl. So I am hard-pressed to understand how the 49ers are a better football team without Jimmy Garoppolo than they are today. Now, with that said, I am so intrigued by Trey Lance's ability, size, character. He has it all, but he hasn't done it yet. So why would you rush his development when you have a great player in Jimmy Garoppolo?
Disagreeing with Freddie Coleman. This is not the Mike Tannenbaum that I know. I used to know and love from that standpoint. And this is you gave me another reason why I think they should go with Trey Lance based on your evaluation that you had of him at the Senior Bowl. And you're right, he has not played a lot of football, but they haven't exactly rushed him because he had a chance to learn last year. We're not talking about a rookie quarterback coming out, had only played one game in the last couple of years and say, okay, we're going to make him the starting quarterback because we drafted him with the 3rd pick in the draft. The 49ers did bring him along slowly last year, and they're able to fit him in a couple of games. He had a couple of starts, including against the Houston Texans. He wasn't going to wow anybody, but they did not open up the offense enough for him to show the wow ability that they believe that he has, because he has the size. He's the first guy you want getting off that airplane if you're a football team saying, oh, that's what we got to deal with for 60 minutes. That's what Trey Lance looks when it comes to the part. So, in my opinion, they've been able to bring him along perfectly in terms of letting him sit for a year. You learn behind Jimmy Garoppolo. His upside is something that they're banking on that's going to be better for this offense that they believe we've seen that Jimmy Garoppolo cannot provide. So if that's going to be the case, there's no need to wait 8 games, 9 games, another year. If you believe he's ready with that talent, he's going to learn on the fly and be better, not retard the progress of your team. You start Trey Lance now, you have Jimmy Garoppolo as your backup quarterback.
Mike, I'm curious, knowing especially what Courtney said, how ready do you think Trey Lance would be to play start in an NFL game?
I think he's close, and it's not about Trey Lance not being ready in as much as you have Jimmy Garoppolo, who's a fully formed adult who's played a long time, sat behind Tom Brady. And again, because of the abbreviated off seasons and sort of like the weird situation that he had, he only played 1 game his final year in college. I just feel like you have the luxury of time. Been in that situation a number of times in my career where we had someone like Chad Pennington sit for 3 years behind Vinny Testaverde. He got in there and the rest was history. And to me, if you have the luxury of a great team, which they do, a really good quarterback, they have in Jimmy Garoppolo, I wouldn't rush it. And knowing that when Trey Lance gets out there, it'll be bumpy like it is for all these young guys. So that's why I'm not rushing his development.
It's not the same situation where it's Jordan Love sitting behind Aaron Rodgers. Like, we know Trey Lance is going to eventually be the starting quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. I don't think giving him more time to develop, and kind of what they did last year, there were moments where he went in games, and when Jimmy had the shoulder injury at the end of the season, he had a chance to get his feet wet. You don't have to get thrown into the fire right away like the other 4 first-round draft picks from the 2021 class did. He's got the luxury of time on his side. This team has the luxury of its window being wide open right now, where it's Jimmy Garoppolo as your starting quarterback, get you as far as you possibly can with him, and then rely on Trey Lance when the time's ready.
Well, I blame this a lot on what Kansas City did with Patrick Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes...
Give him a bad example?
Here's why. Because Patrick Mahomes started 1 game at the end of his rookie year, and Kansas City, that's why we drafted that guy, and then Patrick Mahomes has torn the league ever since. And Mike will tell you this, every NFL team's looking for that right now. So that's why we're seeing this acceleration when it comes to rookie quarterbacks, because people don't realize how hard that is. Now, Patrick Mahomes didn't just step in and become this great quarterback. They were able to have that. Then he took his seismic, otherworldly ability, he was able to do that. And Mike Tannenbaum will tell you, the NFL is a copycat league. Hey, that worked in Kansas City. That can work here. And that's why I firmly believe it's San Francisco saying, well, we got a guy that fits the skill set in terms of a physical makeup, a bigger, stronger version of a Patrick Mahomes, and now we have him in this offense. That's why I believe they're going to accelerate that process, why they have accelerated that process to say, we're not going to wait for Jimmy G. We've gone as far as we can. We got a guy who we believe his upside is going to bring us a Super Bowl championship and not try to go one more year with Jimmy Garoppolo.
And Freddie, I understand that. The only thing I would say the difference is Patrick Mahomes was a really good player in college. He was a top 10 pick. He had played at a high level, played a full season. And again, Trey Lance was an FCS player. They played one game. And I think that's consequentially different because you just need those reps. We had it with Mark Sanchez at the Jets. Like, he had some experience, and even he played his rookie year. While we had success, it was still bumpy for him. So I love the Mahomes comparison. I love Trey Lance for the next 10 years. Don't like him. I love him. But again, if you have somebody right there in your building under contract that you won with, I just feel like there's no reason to rush his development unnecessarily.
Mike, to your point, obviously, like you said and Courtney said, everybody reiterated, we don't know that much about Trey Lance, so I feel like it would make sense to kind of leave him in the background, let him develop a little bit more. And Mike, we're saying goodbye to you now. Thank you.
I don't know who you are anymore.
That was fun. That was really fun. I'm glad that we were able to do that.
Am I dead to you?
No, you're not dead to me. But, you know, I got the Undertaker on speed dial. Let's put it that way.
A weird vibe between you guys right now. Thanks, Mike. We'll see you soon. Coming up, there was a big... The Mariners and Angels engaged in a lengthy full-team brawl in the second inning Sunday after tensions over 2 days of inside pitches boiled over. Both managers were ejected and 6 players. After the melee stopped and started twice, Raisel Iglesias came out to the empty field to throw large containers of sunflower seeds and gum onto the infield. I don't know who I want to start with here. Courtney, I think I want to start with you. What's your reaction to the brawl?
You know, at the time of the game that this happened, there was still game to be played. So thanks, Raisel Iglesias. Somebody wanted those sunflower seeds, and now we don't have any.
Yeah,
I mean, you're launching things onto the field of play. It's absolutely, I mean, my gosh, just look at the oomph that he had there. That's a pretty hefty throw.
That is a really good throw.
Who's going to pick that up? You going to go out there and
Not
pick it up?
him.
Not him.
Wow.
Unfortunate.
Hey, yeah,
baseball players just do weird things like this. I think they just like going into the field to play, to have friendly, not so friendly conversations and just throw things in there.
I mean, if you're going to be a real man about it, throw it at the opposing dugout. But
I think he was trying to, Freddie.
Well,
I don't think
he
could get
failed
there.
miserably.
To go.
He failed miserably.
He was trying to throw it at his former teammate, Jesse Walker.
Put it this way, sunflower seeds are there to eat, spit, be happy. Now, no one can be happy now, like Courtney said, for the rest of the game.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, baseball brawls, they're so comical because there's always like 3 or 4 guys who want to fight, and the other 30 are like, oh man, we got to run.
You got to run out. Be good teammates.
Most of the time, if I hold you back, pretend like you're going to do something, and then we won't get involved. Although if I'm the Angels, the last thing you need is Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani trying to break up a brawl, and those 2 guys are 2 of the best players in baseball.
The funny thing, this reminded me of, you guys remember Philip Wellman, who was with like the Braves farm system, and he was the one throwing like rosin bags, and once he got into the altercation, there's the video. He takes the bases, launches it into the field. That's the first thing that reminded me of when Iglesias takes the sunflower seeds and launches them into the field of play. That's incredible. Look at the loft.
Are you a fan of the thing about baseball brawls that's so interesting to me is how long it takes them to settle down and clear. Are you guys fans of that? Like, I feel like I feel like that's what makes it so good. It's like nobody's stopping it. The umpires are trying to do what they can, but nobody's stopping it.
The umpires are like, look, you know, we get enough grief as it is from fans. We're not doing this.
The umpires are the ones who kind of sparked this thing yesterday.
Either way, but come on now. If you're going to fight. If you're not,
there were guys throwing punches, Freddie.
There were some guys.
There might be some people out coming. There were guys throwing punches.
There should be. Oh my God.
Well, this is fun, guys.
It was fun. Absolutely.
Hopefully we do it again soon, and we'll see you guys next time.